People that have died and have been resuscitated. What's your experience? From what I can remember, I was 16. I had a big operation and we did not know I was deadly allergic to morphine. It was the most peaceful sleep I have ever had in my entire life. It felt like nothing but somehow something, you know. I vividly remember seeing someone resuscitate from another point of view, but I could have made that up. Woke up with my dad holding my hand saying you really scared me there. A couple years later my dad had the same experience after an operation and the same thing happened to him as me. He woke up. I couldn't be more thankful saying those words. And after we told him he grabbed my hand and said I got you back. No light flashing before my eyes or anything. Just cold water, darkness and a feeling of not being in control. I almost drowned while crossing a river. I remember being in the water and then feeling panicked because I was being pulled under. And that's about all I remember. It felt like I skipped some time and came to in a helicopter with some guys leaning over me asking if I wanted some ginger and honey tea. Crazy experience. I felt the same, as if I had went to sleep. I had an alcohol withdrawal related seizure and woke up in the hospital bed. I was told my heart stopped for 8 seconds. Although the one thing I remember is this feeling that the weight of the world lifted off my shoulder. It was such an indescribable feeling, but it was as if everything that I care and worry about is so insignificant in the grand scheme of things. Makes the thought of dying someday less frightening. It felt like I was returning home from a long journey. It felt more familiar than this reality. Consciousness left my body. I was looking down on myself. It felt as if I had become my highest, truest or purest self, and I was filled to the brim with love for myself and all else. It cured my 11-year treatment-resistant clinical depression and reignited my will to live. During the experience I asked myself, how did we get here? Referring to the unconscious me sitting in the chair, and instantaneously I saw my life flash before my eyes and I saw how I had become depressed, and the stories that I believed and adhered to that kept me in that dark place. I also felt as if I had the choice to return or not, and as soon as I said yes, I woke up, transformed. Afterwards I began fasting for spiritual purposes and lost 80 pounds in 8 months and began meditating 2 to 6 hours a day, and today I feel like a completely new person and continue to feel better every day with yoga and the other practices I have adopted. I have also dedicated much of my energy into exploring and understanding other mystical experiences and their transformative potential, and hope to become a psychedelic assisted psychotherapist to help others who might be in similar spots as I once was without risking their lives. I had a blocked artery from a sickness. I basically fell asleep, but woke up immediately. I was in the hospital, which I had little memory of arriving at to begin with. My mom was there, and when she realized I was awake she went up to hug me, but stopped because of the wire in my arm, and kissed me on the head saying, "I'm so glad I have you. Lord knows what I would do if I didn't have you." She sat back down and asked if I wanted anything. I said no and just partially walked out of the room to tell them I was awake. After what felt like 20 or so minutes, a doctor came in and explained the wire in my arm and a bunch of other AFib stuff and how they were going to keep me there. But the important takeaway from the interaction was that he was wearing black gloves. After that I tried to adjust myself in the bed while my mom and the nurse were talking about prescriptions. My elbows just dug into the bed, like straight sank into it to the point where I started to fall in. It felt like my back was grinding on ice. But then I woke up again. This time I was surrounded by doctors that were trying to resuscitate me and putting the wire in my arm. It was the same doctor who I thought I talked to before putting the wire in, who I recognized from his hair color. I don't really remember a lot after that because I kind of just dozed back off, and after that it was just darkness. To not make this too long, I woke up in the same scenario I talked about before happened, but this time the doctor who came in was wearing white gloves. Same doctor, different gloves. Everything else was the same. The way the tears dried on my mom's face, the blood splatter near the fourth. The gloves stood out to me because I had never seen a doctor wear black gloves before. I haven't told anyone because it was just a lot easier to not be hounded with questions as a teenager who wanted as little to do with anyone anywhere. A warm fuzzy silver room. Last best memory with family all around, but only in shadow form watching TV. Everything was so fuzzy and shaky. I think the warmth came from peeing myself during a seizure. It was a comfortable feeling though. Had a bad allergy episode. Slipped into anaphylactic shock. Very weak. Very little control over motor function and very difficult to speak, but could hear very clearly. When I realized how bad it was, I started to feel really cold quite quickly. About the same time everything started to fade. For a brief moment things were hazy and fuzzy, but very quickly faded to black. It was a calming black. Definitely not anxiety inducing. That already happened, and just a peaceful kind of nothingness. No out of body, no visions, no light, just dark nothingness. Came to after what seemed like 20 seconds, but doc says it was actually more like 20 minutes. Prob longer since I saw family member there that did not make the drive with me. The office was a good 30-minute drive from home. On the 14th of August 2018 my dad called me into the living room because he needed help with something. So when I got there I asked what I needed to do, and right then my vision disappeared. My words began to mix up, and I fell down, and my heart stopped. Thanks to my mom. Having studied a lot of medical stuff she began doing CPR and my dad called the emergency number and an ambulance arrived within minutes. I woke up about half an hour later in my living room with 4 medics around me, and they began asking me a bunch of stuff and I didn't understand anything. After a few minutes I began to understand them, and they were asking me to move a limb. Try to smile. Try to stick your tongue out. I couldn't move a muscle. Not even my eyelids. All I could do was cry. So I did. They quickly brought me to the ER, and I stayed in the hospital for another 8 hours while they did all types of tests on me, but they didn't find a single thing wrong with me. I was in perfect condition and they didn't understand it. I have no lasting damage from it, but I have to do a medical check once a year just in case. I had an emergency C-section. When they started to cut me open, I could feel it. So they placed a mask over my face and I knocked out almost immediately. While I was out, I felt like I was weightless and not me, but I don't know, energy, like I was floating through a maze and the walls of this maze were a soft, glowing white. There were images and voices beyond the walls. They were familiar, and I wanted to stop and listen, but I was moving along through this maze, unable to stop myself. I didn't really try, though. I was just ebbing and flowing along. Suddenly I felt very, very sad. I knew I had died, and I was sad, because I wasn't going to see my baby, or see him grow up. Then there was a voice. I don't remember if it was male or female, but it was trying to calm and soothe and let me know that all was well and not to worry. Then I heard my name being called. It was my husband's voice, and then my mom's, and then a nurse. They asked me my name and the date, and if I knew where I was. For the life of me, I could not open my eyes, though I felt like I was trying very hard to do so. There was a very, very bright door or window directly across from me. I kept asking my mom and my husband to close the curtains or close the door, but they were confused. They said there was no window or door, just a blank wall. I asked them to turn off the lights because it was too bright. They said the lights were dimmed. I insisted they close the curtains and or door, please. The light was really, really bothering me. Come to find out, once I did manage to fully open my eyes, there was no door or window, just as they had promised. It was just a blank wall. Anyway, baby and I are fine, but my husband told me that I had to be resuscitated during the C-section because they lost me. Nope. I remember hearing something like a 1950s radio being tuned off the station, and then I woke up 29 hours later. I, apparently, woke up finishing what I was saying. Pronounced dead on scene by ambulance crew after suffering head injury. They got my vitals kicking. After about a 90 seconds of CPR. Woke up in the hospital. Didn't feel a thing. I have died on 5 separate occasions after going into anaphylactic shock. Before being diagnosed as having a sesame allergy, like dead, no heartbeat, no breathing, skin that had turned blue, etc. EMT and doctors had to work on me to bring me back. Twice they thought they wouldn't be able to. I saw mountains and seas, clear blue skies as far as the eye could see. I could close my eyes and instantly go from mountain peak to mountain peak. Saw through the clouds just by thinking it. I could do anything my mind allowed as I was not confined by a body or laws of physics. It was complete peace, and I had a feeling of being part of everything, like I could feel the mountains, the seas, the clouds and the wind, not touch them sort of feel, but I could feel them. as if they were part of me. Then I would feel something like being pulled, not physically, but almost like a siren song that I could not ignore, and I would wake up in a hospital. It was not at all scary, and I'm no longer afraid of death, just how death will come. I remember I was in the hospital dying from a heart virus. I remember I left my body. I also remember seeing all my doctors outside of my body, and I remember naming every one of them where they surrounded my body trying to save my life. I told them everything I saw when I was revived, and they were amazed. They wondered if I was awake somehow. I asked them, did my heart stop? They said for a bit. I remember when I was there dying, there was pain, intense pain in my chest. I was in a coma because of my sickness. I couldn't get up or wake up. I remembered there was a nurse named Miss Allison who whispered in my ear and talked to me every day even though I couldn't respond. She told me before I was going to possibly die, fake name, Toby, you are going to have to suffer first before things get better. Soon the moment after my operation began, and that's when it happened. I died temporarily. I remember I did see the light, and I was in like a warm, comforting place. I felt no pain or suffering. There was complete darkness. As soon as I left my body and went up high into the sky, it felt like I was shot straight up. Then, when I was higher enough farther from Earth, everything went dark. I don't know how to explain this to you, cause it's unexplainable. Everything was dark, but then there was a light. I noticed I wasn't walking towards no light, how they show people and tell people in the movies, don't go into the light. It was not like that, more like it was magnetically attracting me, and I didn't have a physical body. I was just complete energy. I do remember crossing over to a heavenly realm. I didn't quite believe in God, but I will try not to discuss this more of it for the sake of personal interest. But I will tell you one thing I learned from that place in heaven or some higher realm of existence. Everyone goes to heaven, including atheists, Muslims, pagans, Jews. It turns out when I asked, will I go to heaven cause I wasn't Christian, the gatekeeper of this heavenly realm wasn't surprised at my question at all. He told me that God is not bound by one religion or beliefs in a way that practice kindness, love, and compassion leads to him. It is actions on earth that cause you to go to hell, and even hell they describe it isn't forever, it's just until you learn your lessons and have empathy for what you did on earth. Another part about Miss Allison, when I woke up and asked for her, they said there's no nurse Allison who works here. That's when I knew Miss Allison was a angel or spirit of some kind.